Hello there. I'm Lance Lysowski, the Sabres beat writer for the Buffalo News. We're at the end of the Sabres season, and if you haven't seen it yet, we started a series this week. 5 glaring questions, I would say, surrounding the Sabres entering this offseason. Now, of course, so many of the questions we had at the beginning of the year were answered throughout the season. I could keep going on, but when most of the team achieves career highs, that goes a long way towards moving this rebuild, although he won't use the word that Kevyn-Adams has undertaken here since he took over, not only as general manager in 2020, but this really started in 2021 after Ralph Krueger was fired. So where we're at now, I think the big question that fans, media, maybe even other teams in the league have about the Sabres is how do they take that next step? If everybody already had career highs, is it reasonable to expect everybody to do the same a year from now, especially when there's a chance that they could deal Victor Olsen, who scored 28 goals this year. That's a hit. That's not an insignificant output. It's more than someone, for example, Sam Reinhart never scored 28 goals, so it's not insignificant. But I think when you spoke to players, you spoke to Don-Granato and Kevyn-Adams at the end of the season, they're really relying, or really, they see anecdotal evidence that suggests to them that 3 young players in this roster in particular are going to be taking that next step to contribute more offensively, to be more consistent difference makers in all areas of the ice. And that is Peyton Krebs, jj-peterka, and jack-quinn. All face different challenges with this being their first full NHL season. But when you look at it at the end now, although it might not show on the score sheet overall, each took significant steps. And the one that's really fascinating to me out of the 3, although all 3 are interesting, the one that I'm very interested to see what the next step is Peyton Krebs. Of course, he was in a defensive role. He was with Zemgus Girgensons and Kyle Okposo. They were, top 12 in the league. They were 12th overall among, I think it was 40 lines with 300 minutes of 5-on-5 and goals allowed per 60 minutes on 5-on-5. They were getting difficult matchups, particularly at home. Krebs got better in the faceoff dot. He got better defensively. He showed that toughness, that feistiness that they need out of a player in that role, right? You got to be able to adjust. This league, professional sports, I don't care which one you look at, NFL, MLB, it's all about roles. If you can't thrive in yours, sometimes you have to go somewhere else where you can find your niche. Well, Peyton Krebs carved out his own niche this year, and he was a player when he came into the league, was very talented offensively, a playmaker. That's why he was picked 17th overall by the Vegas Golden Knights. But through playing with Girgensons and Okposo, he developed a stronger foundation defensively to where he could be trusted to play down the middle of the ice, to back check, to be reliable in his own end. And by doing that, he built that foundation, which this coaching staff is going to push him to now create more offensively. Now that he knows what areas on the ice you can maybe cheat, where you need to be in certain situations, how to use your line mates. Because, as much as that line, Girgensons, Okposo, and Krebs didn't produce a ton offensively, a lot of it was their defensive zone starts, the usage. They were hemming opponents in their own end a lot of nights this season. They just couldn't convert. Now, as Krebs gains more trust, which I think he's there now, you might see him elevating the lineup, playing more talented wingers. I know fans were clamoring to see him back with Peterka and Quinn this year, but the coaching staff saw he wasn't quite ready. He's going to have to make that leap now. Even if Casey Mittelstadt's able to play center and answer a question there and solidify the depth, they need to have Krebs be able to play with higher end skill players and to be trusted in all situations, not just in this one specific role. If he ends up landing in that role and that's where he thrives, great. Every playoff Stanley Cup winning team needs a player to do that at a high level, but he certainly has the talent to reach another level. The Sabres are going to need him to, especially if they have Kulik coming up, Matt Savoy. Those guys are going to have to play with another center. How do all these pieces mix in? Now with jack-quinn, it's an interesting one because he was probably the better of the 2 between him and Peterka in training camp, but coming out, there was a little bit of a slog, right? I think Quinn pretty much put it that he had trouble transitioning because the pace of the game, of course, in preseason is far different than regular season, so it took him time. He learned his roles. Now, a big piece for jack-quinn is just going to be getting bigger and stronger. We saw how long that took Tage Thompson, much longer than people had anticipated. Casey Mittelstadt's gone through that process. Now, jack-quinn, physically, that's the one hurdle I think he needs to clear to really be that breakout player that Matthias Samuelsson predicted he's going to be next season. We'll see what kind of offseason Quinn has. He's going to World Championships. That's certainly an opportunity to show what he can do in a scoring role. But toward the end of the year, more consistent in puck battles, winning those, more reliable defensively, although I think coming back and covering in your own end is an area that him and Peterka both have to address. He and Peterka, excuse me. The penalty kill. That is an area we know this team needs to improve. It was bad. It was very ugly some nights, but throughout that process, I think don-granato and his staff realized they're going to have to go with speed and skill with those two units as opposed to your traditional penalty killers. They were much better when they were aggressive. They were putting pressure on guys, and to do that, sometimes you need Alex Tuch, Dylan Cousins, Jack-Quinn, Peyton Krebs. Those might be the future main penalty killers in this group. And that is a very good place for Quinn to develop those defensive habits he's going to have. The shot came a long way. He found a way to create his own lanes because, it's tough. You enter the zone, the defense, if there's more than two defenders, they're set. They're trying to block your shot lane. I thought he did a really nice job manipulating defenders, fooling the goalie at times. So, again, if Olofsson walks, what do Quinn and Peterka do on the power play? Because that's an area that, of course, I think Dylan Cousins can step up on that top unit and play at that right flank. They're going to need Quinn or Peterka to do the same, though, to really be able to make up for what they could lose in trading Victor Olofsson if that ends up being the case. Now, Peterka, it's defense. I think that he added a lot of layers to his game in terms of playmaking, getting down the ice, surveying, using his line mates. In primary assists, I think he was 6th on the team. 6th among that group of talented forwards. That's pretty impressive. I don't think there was a big drop-off on what he was doing offensively, but defensively, you can tell that the focus strayed at times. You're focusing on offense. You want to be able to cheat. You want to be that difference maker, and you're not covering where you need to be, which I think is what definitely led to the certain games where we saw him scratched. And strength, winning puck battles, details, I think those are all the areas these young players are going to have to really master as they gain more experience and they're tested and with more responsibilities and bigger roles. But there's no question for the Sabres to take another jump, to take that next step, to clear that playoff hurdle. They're going to need Krebs, Quinn, and Peterka to continue on this trajectory. There's going to be bumps along the way, but they've got to be more consistent rather than having those peaks and valleys than maybe we saw this season. I'm Lance Lysowski from the Buffalo News. Have a great day.